Hey, everybody, welcome. Let me make sure I don't hit in stream there. I'm Lancelot Chaubert here with Linda Addison, the fabulous, wonderful. Yeah, Linda is the grandmaster of fantastic poetry. It's such a wonderful title. I'm so happy about that. Yeah, it's great, and has, you can see in the liner notes, her middle bio. I chose the middle length between the shorter one and the longer one. Um, so yeah, I'm delighted to have Linda today. It's funny. I don't know that I've told you this, but I've got my mom might watch this at some point. So my mom, she's my mom, right? And she's also a nursing mom for me because she's an RN and held down the fort of the Marion County Health Department, for years, helping underserved communities. And so I've got my mom and my nursing mom together in one. And then in high school I had like a theater mom, but I feel like I didn't like have a poetry mom until I met you. And it's, and it's funny because I've written poetry as a discipline for like a long time. Just because like as part of my own becoming and feeding my soul, even if it didn't sell anything or whatever. But I show up at World Fantasy Convention in Baltimore. I was like, there's an open mic. I'll do a reading here for my own stuff, then I'll go and do that, and that'll be fun. And man, that was probably the most encouraged I've been in my writing in a very, very long time. When you're in everyone's corner individually who shows up, and so I've just really cherished that. Even when I've gone through a dead point, seeing you in Gen Con and after that, I was like, man, I should probably submit more of these, like instead of just writing them for, my own soul. So, yeah, so I'm grateful to you for that. But
well, you were unforgettable in that reading. I will never forget. I remember, like, oh my God, I think I went up to you afterwards and like, where's your stuff? What? I mean, you were unforgettable. Stop it. I have one of your books here that I got somewhere in these
thank
bookcases.
you for that. Oh, that's super
Yeah.
sweet.
I meant to pull it out so that I could be like, and I have your book. But now, you know what? I'm reorganizing my bookcases. Don't do that. Don't ever
Yeah.
do that, because then you can't find nothing.
Oh man, my bride, she was an administrator at a college at one point, and her boss, she Dewey Decimaled his whole library for him. And it was actually a really beautiful thing because he could search everything on his computer.
Okay.
And then we got married, and she put mine into rainbow order.
Oh my gosh. I
And
just had I hate when a bookcase has books this way and then they're stacked in front of it. I can't.
I better
So
not show you.
I pulled them all out, and now I'm like losing my mind. I feel like,
Yeah,
I think the one I have of yours has like a off-white or yellow cover. I'm looking here, but Lord help me.
like that.
Yes.
Yeah, that was all poems from my 20s, published and unpublished.
Yeah, I loved it. I don't know why you don't want to go out and see it in other magazines and stuff, but that's on you. You know your life, your way, babe.
Well, I do. I feel like sometimes I feel like the opportunity cost of submitting poems is like, I'm like, man, I could be editing right now or what, like, I don't know. I wish I could
Fair.
afford. I'm just not my executive functioning. I believe in being administratively faithful,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not administratively gifted, and it stresses me out when I got to do emails and stuff and spreadsheets and stuff. Like, I have all that. I've done our budgets. I got it in the same spreadsheet since like for 15 years, every single sheet. But it just takes a lot out of me, and so I'm just a little more precious with it than I should be. But I have started since I talked to you and Jen kind of started putting stuff out there. And man, Utopia, whom I love, I made the last round on the one that I read at Gen Con just like yesterday.
Oh, I love that
The
one.
Perfect Purple one, and oh man, so anyway, I'm putting it out there more because of you. So anyway, if you guys, if anyone's on here and hears anything, Linda wants you to submit more poems and write more poems. Is probably what I think. That's a fair assessment, right?
Indeed. Space and Time will be opening next year.
Yeah.
So, keep an eye on that. But I mean, I respect you doing whatever is not going to stress you out. I
Well,
understand it,
yeah.
That's important.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I wish I could have someone that would do submissions and emails, but not all of us can be
Woo, I
Sanderson.
need an assistant so bad. I think I might need more than one. Not sure.
Yeah, yeah, that's the Howard Andrew Jones on writing or not Howard Andrew Jones, Howard Taylor. Sorry, Howard Andrew Jones, if you're hearing this. I would love to talk to you soon. But Howard Taylor on writing excuses, he would always say to Brandon Sanderson, luxury, when he would talk about assistants and stuff like that.
Yes,
Not all of
yes.
us.
I know Brandon got like a whole army, and you
Yeah,
know what that is? I need that too.
he's a, he is an incorporated man at this point.
Yes, he is. I appreciate that. That's
Yeah,
like
that's
a
cool. That's
goal.
cool.
That's a living goal for me.
That's cool. Yeah, well, I think what I'm gonna do, we started some of this over text on the Discord. I think I might just like tee up a couple of those things that we talked about to get them more or less on the record. If there's anything you don't want to talk about or whatever, there's no gotcha questions, you know me.
That's fine. If I don't want to, I won't. Don't worry. I'm from Philly, baby. It's not a problem.
Yeah. So I asked at one point if there was, the first speculative imaginative moment you had. And you said it was something when you were 6?
Yeah, a cat, right? That was the cat one I answered.
Yeah, I think you said a cat with
Cat with
wings.
wings? Yes, a cat with wings. I mean, I never I never daydreamed anything normal. That was the problem for my teachers in school. But it's just like being in first grade, maybe at 6 or whatever, and looking out the window and seeing a cat and thinking, "Ooh, what if that cat had wings? Then it could fly up and chase the birds." And then and until high school, my mom would get notes from teachers going, Linda would get a much higher grade if she just didn't daydream so much. You know what? You know what? Daydreaming is why I'm all published now. Okay. I'm just saying, you got to know yourself.
Yeah, no, it's so true. It's so true. Actually, the magic system of the thing I've been working on for a long, like the big fantasy thing that I've wanted to write for a long time that I don't have the chops for yet. It's all about creativity and that as a magic system.
Oh, I love it. I love the
and
concept.
the nested layers of that with characters, author, all of the different same reader, how the reader participates or an audience. And one of the things that shows up is like one of the main creators in it. The mom and family members showed up was like, you're off in your own little world, which is like this in joke because all of the readers and characters, that means a lot to them, but to the person that is not participating in it, it's completely useless, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just for me, even now, it's so many years later, so many, I still just like struggle to stay in the reality with other people because I'm always daydreaming. And that's why I have like almost 100 journals because I'm always writing. Like somebody will be talking and I mishear things, which is always the best gift of all. So I'm always writing things down, and then I'll go back and those become seeds of something that I write later. That's how I do all my collections.
Oh, I mean, I'm the same way. I've got collections like of other people's work or your collection.
No, when I start writing a collection, I go back to the journals that I have the day after I finish the last collection and I start going through them, looking at these little seeds. And as soon as I get, like I said, an energy, like something, then I get pulled in and then that's how I end up creating new work for the most part.
Great. Yeah, I might, if we get into cold readings, I might do a little. Do you know C.D. Wright?
I do, but I'm not as well as I'd like to hear you read it.
Yeah, she talk. I don't know if it was her that said that or not. The discerning moments, like these things that stick out to you, and suddenly just by reflecting on them, or Blaise Pascal said that all of humanity's problems would be solved if a person would learn to sit in a room quietly alone and think. And that those moments stick out. Journaling is just so huge part of that.
We live in such a busy society. We're so used to going and doing and going and doing. And I've spent many years doing Tai Chi, doing meditation to sit quietly and just let things come. The life poems I put out on Facebook and Twitter are all when I wake up, I do a little meditation, I do breathing, and then whatever comes is what I write. I don't even edit them.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I do better with that when I'm out in nature. I might need to. In fact, I did the Greenwood Poet ones that were all. It was kind of responding to C.S. Lewis has this article in Selected Literary Essays. I don't know if you read this. It's got a hilarious.
I have not, but it looks like something I could read and need.
Oh, it's got one I show a lot of Christians a lot of time because he's kind of the rah-rah Christians. It's called 4-Letter Words. It's just about all the cuss words in the English language.
Oh, nice.
But it was on the alliterative meter, and he says in it that if free verse is like painting in watercolor, and syllabic verse is like carving in wood, then the alliterative meter is like carving in granite because it has like 18.
Ooh. Yeah.
And, yeah. So I did Greenwood, which is like carving in granite at the cemetery over there outdoors. But now I've been thinking about concrete and watercolor, which is like what is free verse in this like grind in a desert situation or an urban desert of like concrete and steel and I would be interested to hear how you get that discerning moment in the midst of the grind, because I think better.
you and I are very similar, Lancelot. And by the way, oh my God, that name. I will change my name to Lancelot D. Addison. So cool. Anyway, it's funny. See how this is how our minds are connected, because I've been thinking about writing rap poetry.
Oh yeah?
I know.
Yeah, you should.
I love different forms. I love forms because somehow they don't restrict me, because the way I do it is I write first and then I shape it, unless the shape comes automatically.
Yeah, I thought I had Tuco up here, but then, the Book of Forms.
I have a couple of them, but Tupac. Now you're talking about Tupac because one of my heroes just passed. Oh my God, I can see her face and I can't bring her name. But anyway, it'll come to me. And she had a Thug Life tattooed on her arm, and she just passed. And she's like, everybody's like, she's the poet, and I was like, if she can put Thug Life on a tattoo, I can write rap. I'm gonna bring it up. I've got something from Kindle of hers, because I couldn't find. Again, organizing my bookshelf, I'm like, I cannot find the poems of her.
Yeah.
What the heck?
I'm a hot mess. I feel it.
Nikki Giovanni.
Okay.
She just passed a couple days ago.
Oh man, I'm so sorry.
Is that who that is? I'm gonna trust myself. Okay, let's go back to
my comfort for your loss.
I mean, in a way, it's like, and we're too close in age. I'm getting into that spot now that really pushes me into a meditative moment. I'm like, oh.
You got a memento mori?
A what?
A memento mori, to remember that you will die. They used to have.
Oh yes, I appreciate that. I take that on a daily basis, babe.
This is mine.
Okay.
I fill in one.
Tell me about that.
Oh, okay. This is the date that I'll die if I live 80 years.
Oh, dude.
And so,
I'm so close to 80. That ain't even nothing. I'm trying to reach for 100 over here.
But yeah, I mark off every week, and this is like, that's my cousin who died. That's my my buddy Paul. That's my dad who died.
Yeah.
His wristband.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. I like it.
Yeah, so I feel you, man. It's like, oh, that's that friend. That's that friend, like every week. So
I mean, to me, that chart is something that I tell myself that I've learned, and I share with other people, and that is whenever you have a loss, whether it's Nikki Giovanni, who I'm not even related to, but my breath of poetry grew out of her, for one, or someone very close to you, which is someone very close to me, passed a week ago. Every time you have a loss, it brings back the emotion of all the losses you've had, even if you're not thinking about them. So that chart is a way to remind yourself of that. I like that idea. Yeah,
it's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. In fact, we have, I might, depending on what we do later, there's a Mary Oliver poem I read at my grandpa Dino's funeral that I hadn't read out loud or quietly until Zoe Kaplan, the author from of Gods and Globes anthology, this guy, she passed away. She was an editor at Saga, at Simon and Schuster. We had a memorial at our house, and I hadn't read that poem since Grandpa's funeral. As I read it again, and it was both, like at the same time. You know, it was like it was back at the funeral, and I was here at the house. So, yeah, I feel that. Every loss compounds.
Sometimes I have to just sit down. Like with Nikki Giovanni, it was a moment of just going and rereading her stuff. But some people who are past that I'm very close to, and I can't even start the list. Maybe I should. I have to sit down, and I just can't, I have to just sit. I can't write. I can't think. I don't want to, it's just like every cell in my body is vibrating with the loss and not seeing them again, and all the memories of all the losses, because I know that's the truth. Some people don't. They're like, I don't know why I'm so sad. I'm like, well, if this is your first loss, that's a good reason to be so sad. If not, then it's all the other losses coming subconsciously that you're not thinking about.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, I mean, I kind of joke about that because it's like, a lot of people wait so late in life. I feel like I've been like, I will die since I was 8. Like the melancholy spirit.
Okay, no, that's a Buddha situation, baby. You understand everything breaks, everything goes. It took me a while to get one with that concept, but nobody gets to live forever. Nobody.
Yeah. I mean, I do believe that being is fundamental, and the Murphy's Law, what can happen will happen, doesn't just apply to death. It does also apply to being. And so I think there's a lot of hope in that. But yeah, it's also, it is very real that I am, until entropy is fixed, I am.
Well, I got all these thoughts about different dimensions and how, we never really die, and, and all that stuff is there. But what it does for me is it always, once I get past that, trying to get my breath back from a loss and all the echoes of it, it just brings me back to right now, right here with Lancelot, my buddy, just like being present is the infinite reality. There's no past, there's no future. It's just now, this moment. Now it's gone. Now this moment. Now it's gone.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, actually, one of the things I did, because I was having trouble being present with the people I was talking to, which you seem to be much better at that than I am naturally, is I started watercolors in like a watercolor journal after and Emily Monroe, who edited that with me. She was teaching me how to do it. And so I started doing it at home, and I actually started up at my mom's childhood house.
Oh, I love that.
So, or my childhood house, my mom's house. And so that's kind of helped me when I'm like sitting in a room. Like this was during the political debates with the Bernie Sanders campaign. And so that helped me, because that was a really stressful night. It was like they had like a debate watch party, and so I was just like painting a couch in the midst of it, and it helped me kind of like.
Have you always painted?
Not since like grade school. I mean, like not.
Okay,
not really,
that's when you started. Because I started doing art. I've been taking a class with Jill Ballman, who's the one who did the cover to How to Recognize the Demons, Become Your Friend, my best-selling book, whatever. So those are my hands on there.
Yeah.
But
Are they really? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I didn't even know she was doing that. She was like, I need a picture of your hands like this. And I'm like, okay. But she teaches class here in Tucson, and I consider myself not an artist at all. But now I'm doing stuff that I'm like, holy crap, this looks great.
That's awesome. You should send me some. That'd be cool.
I will.
It'd be cool to see that. And I should have mentioned earlier, but now that we're a little bit into it, I saw your note in there, Jamal. Thanks for the shout out. Assuming it's Jamal pronounced that way, but anyone that's got a comment or anything, if you click through to YouTube, if you're not in the YouTube interface, if you're watching through Substack or something like that, if you click through to YouTube, you can go over to the chat window, ask a question. I can throw that up here if it seems relevant or fun. And yeah, we'd love to see any questions you have for Linda. I think one other thing, I asked about the first thing you remember writing that was speculative, and you mentioned the 1998 Outer Darkness magazine. Is that right?
Yeah. What piece did I say?
How to Recognize a Demon Has Become Your...
No, that wasn't it. It was
No, first journal from 1971. Found poetry about the nightbird.
yes.
The
And
nightbird shadow.
yeah. That was very interesting to me because all of a sudden this thing, the nightbird, started coming to me as a metaphor of everything. And in my first book, I wrote a whole section where the nightbird's reaction to joy, to pain, to this, to that. And I have no idea except that and actually I just realized this talking to you. Oh my gosh. My email is nightbird with a Y, NY, from New York. It seemed now that I'm thinking about it, because I don't write very consciously, I write pretty subconsciously, but I find sometimes talking to people, things start to connect. I think that was the first moment I created an alternative me to write, where I didn't feel like it was Linda, or someone could say, well, Linda, why did you say this? That I could write it through Nightbird and this sort of
like an avatar or something.
exactly, thank you, totally. And I never thought of that before, but yeah, it's been a theme that has come and gone in some of my work. Interesting. I wonder what psychologically that says.
Well, one of the things I did in the pandemic was write kind of a thesis about this layers of creativity, and the word I've used, it's kind of like theophany, but I call it octophony, which is the presence of the author in the work, generally and then specifically as a character. Which, I mean, you can go everywhere from self-insert fanfic and like Stephen King in The Dark Tower, C.S. Lewis and his Dark Tower, all the way to like something like a tulpa or something where you're present but as a different thing. Kilgore Trout is kind of Vonnegut's avatar in his bird.
Yeah.
But I think that would be kind of that. It's like your presence in the work, but through this creature. That's
it's so interesting that you brought that up, because now again, as I revisit the concept of it, that seemed like a big jump in freedom for me in writing. That I didn't have to answer anything. It was just the nightbird experiencing things. And I could probably pull one out of the book to read, out of one of the books to read. But I didn't realize that until now, that I like consciously thought about the freedom I felt when I started writing that. Interesting.
Just enough of a buffer, enough of a makeup that like they could take the flack.
Right. That I didn't have to. And by the way, until I got to college, I was super, super introverted. I mean, the first 18 years of my life was not in safe places at all, except the library, which is why I love librarians so much. And so I wrote all the time. I didn't talk much. And so the idea, I guess, the jump to freedom allowed me to come out of that scared little girl afraid to say anything and just be this. And the nightbird is like, I think somebody tried to do a drawing once. I don't even know how to explain it. Now I think it's even multidimensional, so good luck with that. But it was such a place of safe freedom for me, that whatever the nightbird was expressing or whatever, I didn't have to explain it. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I see that happen in a lot of different ways, and that's pretty cool. This one. So you said the first poem in this chapter is this animated objects.
Yes.
Rebirth. In my mind, the night bird is born, stretches and takes flight. Its razor barbs and sweet kisses bring gentle darkness to memories that hunger to hide. Wings caress me and tattoo raven feathers in the light of my soul. Yeah, that's cool.
That's all it, man. That's all the psychological stuff we were just talking about. I didn't even know I was doing that. Every single word in there.
I like the raven feathers. Now I've seen those. I mean, you see some of those sometimes on like Pinterest and things. People tattoo like large wings.
Yeah.
Like in the film version of Constantine, the first time we see Gabriel and just like this huge span.
Yes.
I like
there are a lot of images in that film that really stuck with me and stayed with me.
Oh man, yeah,
And wings. I'm obsessed with wings. So
Oh yeah, there you go.
and my dragon.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I like them. I like them a lot too. I got close to getting wings tattooed on my back at one point, but I've just never gotten. I've never gotten to where I really fell in love with something. But yeah, that's amazing. Let me see here to make sure yeah, it covers what the night book bird is. Sorry, let me double check to see.
I'm having tea. I'm here for you. You just do what you want to do. It's your
What
show.
What kind of tea you having?
Lemon.
Oh yeah.
Lemon with some honey.
Man, I've had to switch over to that because of my caffeine. Yeah, I think that was the bulk of kind of where we started. It seems like we had a couple other things about that, but it looks like you elaborated on it pretty much the same. So we're caught up on that front. I wonder, we can jump straight into just cold reading some poems if you want, or if there's anything else that comes to mind in a general sense. Some of the folks I've been asking kind of where they think the genre needs to head. One of the people I interviewed, the interview's not up yet, said, like, I think questions like that just show that someone hasn't, read enough of the genre yet, which I think is fair. But it's also like we have ideas and we have aspirations and desires for things we'd like to explore or touch on. Are there any things that are like that for you that's like, kind of like the fog of war in the old video games? Like, is there anything that's like unexplored territory that, the unknown for at least
for me personally?
Yeah, that you would like to venture into, or that you'd like to read, and maybe you don't feel like it's your responsibility to write it, but you would like to read.
Oh, I'm always looking to read something different from other cultures, from the unknown, cultures, the unknown, not just like, society cultures, but a person, different people. I mean, I love that this whole breakdown of how people are tagged now is becoming so multi-layered. You can't just say a person is this or that, and so I'm always looking for something different. I mean, I got show and tell. I like show and tell. So I'm the poetry editor for Space and Time magazine. This is the latest 147. And I love that we get work from all over the world because that's what I like. I like to see a different way of writing something. When I wrote The Place of Broken Things with Alessandro Manzetti, his, English is a second language for him, one. And then two, his inspiration is music and art, which isn't necessarily a direct inspiration for me. And so when we wrote together, he brought in energy that was like new and exciting. It's like tasting something for the first time you never tasted, and you can't fit it into what you've had before. So per other people, that's what I like. Right now, oh, dude, I'm doing something that I've been thinking about forever. I'm almost afraid to talk about it. But anyway, I'm not going to talk too much about it. But I have always, I'll say it this way, because I'm looking at the pile of things I have here. I have always loved epic books of poetry, like Ovid.
Oh, yeah.
And then Anara, I'm not saying that right, sorry, which is a sci-fi one. And there's a few other I have there. I've always wanted to do it. And I'm one of these people that says, if you have to wait until it hits you, right? To me, I don't like to force. I'm not going to say no one else. If you can force stuff, good on you. I can't. So in all these many, many years, I've always had that in the back of my mind, when I was younger in junior high school, reading Shakespeare out loud and not understanding it at all, but loving the language, reading stuff like that. So I started it.
That's amazing.
I started, and this going to be, I'll tell you this much, it's because I'm crazy for form, it's going to be all kinds of form. And I've been watching this show on Netflix called Rhythm and Flow, 2 seasons. It's like for, rap competition. I am friggin' obsessed. I'm like sad that the 3rd season isn't here for me to watch. Maybe it's just as well, because then I wouldn't be writing. But all of a sudden, I'm sitting there watching it, thinking about this, not thinking about the epic poetry book I want to do. But all of a sudden I realized I got to do a rap.
Yeah.
Like what? Who does that? I don't know. I do. And in fact, I was talking to Jamal Hodge, who's my buddy, and I said, Jamal, I can't believe this, but he knows about this project. I said, I can't believe it, but somehow in there there's going to be a rap. And I don't even, so he's going to be my reader, my second reader when I do it.
That's
But
great.
I love form. I love different things. I love concrete poetry. You know, I wrote this collection, Dark Duet, with Stephen Wilson, because Stephen Wilson, who's no longer here with us in this dimension anyway, did concrete poetry so well, and I really didn't. So I was like, I want to learn, and I'm talking to him. He's like, well, let's do a collection together. I mean, you know, I just love new stuff like that.
Yeah, that's great. It's great too. You know, one of the things I love about rap is it's actually most of the time it's incredibly structured, and
people don't know that.
Oh no, they don't do a metrical analysis on it. But like I used to go down. There was a hip hop night down the hill. I live in Sunset Park in Brooklyn.
Okay.
There was a kind of an open mic night, a barbershop down the hill, and some nights I would just go and just recite Shakespeare to the beat, and they're like, "Man, what is that?" I was like,
"Oh, stop it, Lancelot! You just planted something in me."
I was like, "This is a bard from about 400 years ago," you know.
I love it.
Or like I do Chesterton, you know, the quality of mercy is not strained to drop it as a gentle rain upon the place beneath it is twice blessed. You know, like that kind of. And it was a little bit of like Hamilton, and I wasn't, you know, I'm not necessarily the best at it, but it was a great way to kind of merge those worlds, and it didn't seem off to anyone in the room because
besides the fact, let's just start with the fact that you are an incredible performer of your work.
Wow, that's
anybody's work. Let's just start there, okay? And you're saying that, and I had marked in selected poems of Gwendolyn Brooks, "We Real Cool."
Oh yeah,
right.
Do it. Go
that you could do. I can't do that as a rap, but it's the one that gave birth to the idea of a golden shovel. Okay. And I just to see how it's structured, there's a line and then a period and then the word we. A line, a period, and then the word we. So you have to read it in a way, you know what I'm saying? So it definitely could be read as a rap, but I'm not ready to do that yet, but we real cool. We real cool. We left school. We lurk late. We strike straight. We sing sin. We thin gin. We jazz June. We die soon. I think that would be an amazing rap. Honestly.
Yeah.
We real cool.
Especially, I mean, it almost feels like a chorus, you know?
Yes. Yes. Well, that to me is what I see. And then what I'm love about it as I'm watching this and understanding that it's really does, it's like you know, it has levels, it has form, it has everything. And you know, people get put off by the cursing in it, but there's some rappers, if you watch this series, they bring on people who are to work with the young ones, to work, like do a thing together. And some of them are just like, beautiful poetry, you know, they talking about dreams and they talking about being who you are, you know. So I wasn't put aside at all by the cursing, by the way. I'm bad at cursing. I try not to do it when I'm being filmed.
Yeah. Well, and it depends on the context. That's one of the reasons I always bring up the C.S. Lewis 4-letter words thing is he's comparing it to what was the erotica, I almost said
Ananias Nin?
No. I can't remember it. I'd have to pull off the shelf again, wherever it is. But it's right here. In 4-letter words, he talks about how these words have been used in so many, like Chaucer, Shakespeare, like all the people we think of as like highbrow. They're sitting here using words that I would not get caught dead using in any context. And they're just like using it on the regular. Yeah, here we go. And his point is Lawrence. Yeah, no, I was right. Lady Chatterley's lover. And he points out this one particular the Roman de la Rose by Jean de Meung. I'm sorry if I got that name wrong, but
Well,
who
that'd be
builds,
me and you both. I can't say names. I'm sorry.
yeah, but it builds all the way up to the use of like the hard C, which again, I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
ever get caught dead using. And
Mm-hmm.
by that point, the poem becomes a romantic and actually tender usage between two lovers that is emptied of any hatred, and compares that to the crassness of Lady Chatterley's lover. And he says, this is like most of the time we use them in like folly or in
Mm-hmm.
satire or in that kind of thing. But if we're going to change the meaning of the world, you actually have to do what literature does best, which is awaken desire. And what Lady Chatterley's lover actually
Oh,
does
yeah.
is eclipse desire and make it stop. And
Yep.
so he's showing how sometimes less is more, and actually using those words in such a way that is honest and proportionate and heightens language rather than dampening it down and stopping it.
Which I
So
love. I love that idea. And this is my latest journal. So what I've started trying to do is I keep the daily stuff in the front, and then when something occurs to me that I might want to, do with poetry or whatever, I put it in the back.
sure,
So this one thing in which people who listen to rap are like, oh, she just found that out. Yes, I did. But now in
yeah,
this rhythm and flow, the first time I heard somebody say this, I was like, what did they just say? And
mm,
then it's like a thing, but because I'm not in that, I didn't know. I'm not going to say the full word, but you'll get it. They'll say something like, we
yeah,
we freak with you, where you F freak or is the four letter F. And
yeah.
I was like, you freak with me. What is, that is not a sentence you hear with the real F word in it. And I was like fascinated because I am so, I don't even know what to say, hungry when someone does something different with language. And
Yeah,
so they
yeah.
do that through the whole season one, mostly in season two. And I'm just like, oh my God, goddess, I never heard anybody use that word in that sentence like that. And they must have been like, oh, Linda.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. The man, my mind's going 16 different ways here. I think one of the things, we talked about doing. Hold on, Tara's saying hi.
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 You need something?
Hello.
Oh, okay, cool. She's got her shoes. Hold on. There you go. There you go. Yeah. No, you're good, man. That's my wife. That's Tara. You get to meet her someday.
I
She's good.
will. Nice. Love is grand.
Yeah. What were we talking about? Rap stuff.
Using the use of a word in changing its context, basically. Because people think of the four-letter word F as something like, but they're using it there like I F with you means I am with you. I got you. I feel you. And I'm like, love.
So I've got one I'm trying to sell right now. That's actually, it's a comedy piece, but it's called Ode to a Wind Effer. And I won't say it like, but that is the name. That is a name of a kestrel, a bird of prey. That actually isn't a cuss word. It's the etymology of this word goes all the way back to the early form of the word, which is strike. And so the whole point of the poem is to show how we get to a point where we think something bad of something that's innocent. Like the word actually just means, because it means to strike out of air. Like it's it's a wind for like, and so like it just plucks right out of the air. Right. And we don't think that when we hear the word pluck, but we do with the F word. And it's because of the connotations that we have with it. So it's the entire poem. It uses the F word only in that context and tries to reposition.
I want to read this. Send this to me so I can read it. I mean, just for I ain't promising you nothing, just for my own
oh no,
entertainment, because I could spend a whole day looking up the source and the path of one word. I just can. I love words.
Yeah, I think I agree with, it seems like Tolkien kind of implied at points that like you read the history of words and you read the history of everything. Like, you open a dictionary, like an old school dictionary, not like, and you see
Not
NS.
dictionary.com.
No. Well, I mean, sometimes, but like, yeah, generally speaking, you need the actual context, and it, like, it says NS. That means that word was invented by National Socialists. Like, it is a Nazi word. It was invented for the Nazi Party, you know? So we see things like non-person, and it has that etymology in it. That kind of connects you to the ideology
So much.
both ways. You know, so there's so many things like that. Like, oh, you know, like there was one I did in the Poets Market on broke and brook, which don't really seem to be connected to bruch until like you realize if someone has a clay plate and they drop it on the ground and it shatters, it suddenly looks like a marshland. You know, and so it's this metaphor built into the very birth that when you hear Brooklyn, you think, oh, that can be why some neighborhoods are kind of divided here. You know, like it kind of like all of it kind of connects in these weird ways. Just like,
which is what I love about doing that, about looking up how a word comes in. That you're saying that just made me think, like when I grew up and we moved a lot, sometimes like every year, to keep away from the bill collectors, I'm just gonna say. And so in the middle of the night. So we never had books. I didn't grow up with bookcases full of books, you know, but someone gave us a big old-fashioned dictionary, like the size that you could sit on as a stool as a kid.
Yeah.
Right?
Webster's second. I'm with you. Yeah.
Woo! And I was able to read when we got that. And I literally remember sitting on the floor as the sun's coming through a window, going and just flipping it to one thing and reading everything they said about a word and just being in a dream. And I can do that now at my own pace, but that was like a big thing to me. And that one also had all those maps at the back, so there's the world all of a sudden that I wasn't really seeing. It was amazing. I would love to get one of those again. I should look for one. I bet somebody still got one.
I did. I got one because I was trying to look up the dictionary that Nabokov had with you know, Pale Fire has a beautiful poem. Half the book's a poem. And I was curious, and it was Webster's second. I was like, I wonder how much that would cost. And some library was getting rid of one for $20. It's like
that's what I want to look for, because that was like the obsession with the written word for me, to have that and be able to just sit and, like, you know, read and understand all the notations, you know, that makes
Well, and you get into things that, like, I didn't even know existed very quickly just by going alphabetically, which is, you know, you don't want to do that for time because your eyes will hurt changing all the different fonts all the time. But like, you know, I've got flashcards for like other languages I'm trying to learn, but I don't know all the words in my own language.
Yes.
So why not have flashcards for English?
Exactly.
Still, like I just stopped vocab because I'm not in the 4th grade anymore. Like, you know, like actually formally disciplining myself to learn new words. And man.
Yeah. Well, that's like how I edit. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please. How you edit?
That's how I edit my poetry. And I teach a workshop. I've taught it usually at like StokerCon or World Heart. You could buy it online through HWA. There's a recording of it about writing poetry form. And again, I teach, what I tell people is, let's just do this. Let's just play with some words. I mean, the way it starts is I make people just write without thinking until they fill a page up with words. And then we take and we're going to do a haiku. We're going to do a sonnet. We're going to do a, you know, and take some of those words as seeds and write what the song is that's coming to you, the story that's coming to you, whatever, and then make it the form.
Yeah.
You could take one poem and make that poem, take from that same poem, haiku, sonnet, all the different forms. And that's how I write. I mean, I'm sure some people do the form straight up, unless I've done it a lot. When I wanted to learn how to do haiku, I went away for like 4 days and I just wrote haiku over and over and over again. I had the original book from Japan that talked about it. I can't remember titles, but I got it here. And I must have written in those 4 days, like, I don't know, 50, 100 haiku.
Mm.
And out of that, I sort of got a natural rhythm. And I sold like 4 of them, which I thought was a win.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So, you know, that's what form is to me. It's a way to shape something, but I don't necessarily shape it up front. Even concrete poetry, when I've worked with people with that. You take a poem you've written, Lancelot, and you can turn it into a concrete poem depending on what images you see that you want to do with it.
Yeah, that's a good. Even that discipline early on when I was a freshman, blogging under pseudonyms, like there was I think it was called Poe Fusion. It was a blog spot that
Mm,
lady would post prompts every single day, and some days it would be a form, some days it would be responding to a picture, some days
mm.
it would be include these 5 words, and I just did it every single time. And I just did it for fun, but I didn't realize, like, through her tutelage, I was disciplining myself all these different kinds of poems, and like writing your way through the book of forms, or through all of the various forms are ways to do it. I never even thought till you mentioned it, like write the same poem in every single form.
And
Actually,
change it to form. So
yeah,
much fun.
that's an incredible way to riff. But yeah, that piece in the Poets Market was exactly what you just said. It was called a schematic for sculpting language, and it was,
Mm.
it says a poem is matter, metaphor, meter, which is phonoaesthetics that sometimes rhyme. And so it's you got to know what you're talking about, and you got to have the, like, collision. Like, all metaphor is actually mixed metaphor. It's combining words in this weird way that kind of mutually, shows you something of both. Brooklyn says hi, by the way.
Hey,
I don't know
Brooklyn, what's up?
if you can hear the sirens, but and then the last thing is, and then how does it actually sound? And that's where the structure comes in, whatever that structure ends up being. So I am in total agreement on that, because otherwise you end up with, like, on-ramp syndrome, where you're like, the first 2 stanzas are just me trying to figure out what the poem is about,
Which is fine. You know,
which
when
is fine.
I work with what I call new poet or young poets, I don't mean age. I mean poets who have been writing, but not sending it out, not doing a workshop, just letting it flow, which is all good. But
Yeah.
what I've found quite often is that when I see a poem of them and we walk through it, it's really like 2 or 3 poems in one poem.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm like, what if you, I mean, what's great with computers, you can do this and not lose anything. What if we take this part out and then let's make the image, the emotion, the feeling, whatever you're doing, let's build that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I mean, I'm sure I've done the same thing. I actually started saving my versions of writing because my papers are being collected by the University of Pittsburgh's Horror Studies
Woo.
group. I know, dream come true, baby. I was always like, and one day there'll be an Addison library in my little quiet self, you know, not telling nobody that now, you know. But what I see so I try to keep versions of the poems until I finish the final one, you know, that's going to be published. And it's very interesting to me to see it that way because I just would always just go through and boom, 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 and just like shape, cut, you know, change words around. But to see that it's a big part of my process for creating. I don't feel like when I'm writing something, including fiction or novels, which I'm getting into, that I gotta like straight up, it's gotta do its thing. No, straight up, I just need to like vomit that stuff out.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
I'll work
True.
with it.
Yeah, Lord knows I'm guilty of it. I mean, the only reason I learned that from Marilee Gerardo is the poet that taught me that. She's an MFA here.
Mm.
She teaches down in
Mm.
Alabama now, but she said, I think this is suffering from on-ramp syndrome. I said, I've never heard that. Tell me more. And yeah, it's because it comes out of a journaling space. I think it's like free writing into poetic form, okay, now this is actually the poem.
Yes.
So that's
That
good.
is my process, man. I mean, it's very rare that I get, especially for form poems. Sometimes I'll do a form poem and it'll come like that, you know, but not often.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I want to respect your time. When do you got to
Oh,
log
I
off?
got time to be here. No time. I got nothing else to do today. Well, I mean, I got no other appointment. Oh my God. No, actually Sundays I don't have anything. I decided the Sunday is my no chill day. I mean my chill day, so I don't do any deadline work on Sundays.
That's good. That's good. You need a day off. Even
Whew.
even animals at the zoo need a day off. I mean, like
I mean,
everybody needs a day
seriously.
off. You
For
know.
real.
So, you wanna do some cold readings for a little bit?
I love cold readings. I
I know you
do
do.
because they always make me slow down. It's like you can eat something really fast, so you could just take a bit and smell it and chew it and then swallow it. And to me, that's what cold readings are. You have to really and I learned that from Jack Ketchum, Dallas Meyer, my buddy who's no longer here with us. He gave me one class in reading out loud because it was horrible. Oh my God. I'd read really fast and I'd read really fast like this and then run off the stage. I was like, that's not all right. One day with him changed everything, and he's the one that taught me each word. So I love doing code readings now.
Yeah, it's like there's like kind of an improv spirit to it too. Yeah.
Totally.
So,
Totally.
all right. Well, maybe we'll pass them back and forth.
Okay. Because I love hearing you read all day and night.
You're too kind to me.
I am not too kind. You need to be kinder to yourself, buddy.
That's probably true. I receive it.
You're so good.
Well, since we're talking about poetry, I'll read a little bit of C.D. Wright. I'm going to skip around because it's directly about poetry. But Cooling Time is the name of the anthology, and it's based on an obscure law in Texas where if it's a line of legal defense particular to Texas courts in which it is held that if a man kills before he has had time, quote unquote, to cool after receiving an injury or an insult, he is not guilty of murder.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so this is her cooling time for poetry. So she was insulted about people saying things about poetry in the poetic world. And so her cooling time is just waylaying the populace in defense of poetry. It's an amazing narrative poem set. But she's got some of these that are like, every year, the poem I most want to write, the poem that would in fact allow me to stop writing, changes shapes, changes directions. And later, in my book, poetry is a necessity of life, what they used to call non-taxable matter. No matter which side of the border poets live on, they tend to act as if they were being overrun. All I want is a day pass. I like to sleep in my own bed.
Nice.
Yeah, it's great. It's great stuff like that. Much has been declared about the musicality of poetry, not so much about the physicality, the adamantine practice of poetry as it pertains to touch, an impression of which can be lifted off the ends of the fingers. These are some of the things I've touched in my life that are forbidden. Paintings behind velvet, electric fencing, a vault in an office, gun in a drawer, my brother's folding money, the poet's anus, the black holes in his heart where his life went out of him.
Oh, I love that. The black holes in his heart. Whew. I could write a whole poem to that one. I'm often inspired by lines by other people, by the way.
Yeah, she says poetry is tribal. It's not material. At one point, she says, poetry will not go quietly. It can live on
the night.
Yeah, and you can live on very little. You will have to starve it out. And that's kind of a response to literary journals that are getting defunded by larger institutions that are paying for all kinds of other things like football teams and
I can't. I literally cannot. No, sir. No, sirree.
But more funding for the arts is kind of one of our arguments in that.
Yeah. I'm surrounded by books. I think we didn't record me saying we need hours. And then maybe I should, like I said, I think that I'm gonna make you try to do this on my own channel, which needs on my
Yeah.
own YouTube channel.
That'd be
As
great.
soon as I get a couple more clones of me involved, because oof. Anyway, so all these things I'm looking at here, and I'm going to grab something. What am I grabbing? Oh, I'm gonna grab Jamal. Oh no, before I get to Jamal,
Yeah.
because I love Jamal's book. Oh, okay, I'll do Jamal since I mentioned him.
Yeah.
Just came out his first poetry collection this
Hey!
year, The Dark Between the Twilight.
Oh, wow.
Whew. I mean, this is like phew. On the back, somebody or he said, darkness purifies. Okay. I mean, I'm just like such a huge fan of him. So, and we have a collection coming out next year. Oh crap! I just got to tell you. Everything Endless.
Oh, okay. You
A
co-wrote
poetry
together?
book. Yeah, we did, and it's poetry, and it's a cosmic tale of humanity and the stars and endlessness. And oh my God, I'm so excited! And it's going to be published by Raw Dog Screaming Press. So anyway, that was a commercial. Okay, see, I just
Good.
pulled randomly. It's called We Change.
All right.
Sometimes it's I love you. We change. Sometimes it's I hate you. We change. Always it's I need, I want, I deserve. Always it's me, sometimes you. We hope to change what has never changed. The long delay, pretending day will not bring night. We cannot change the name, but not the fight. We change the name, but not the fight. I don't know. We change the hope, but not the behavior. The allegory of the cave in darkness, reorganizing the same tools, painting over the same wall, changing nothing but the colors we pretend to see. We change.
I like that a lot.
I love I just love the way he does things. He's got a lot of different things he does that I love. Your
If
turn.
you're still
Go
on
ahead,
here,
say something.
if you're still on here, Jamal, thank you for that. Yeah, it's a gift. Yeah. Man, I just want to kind of sit in that for a little bit.
I know. See, that's what poetry is like. That's what I tell people when they're reading. Don't rush through things. Give people a minute.
Man. That one's longer than I thought it was. Let's see if I can get one from the Porcine Canticles. Oh, that one's huge too. Have you read the Porcine Canticles?
I didn't. I was writing that down.
By David Lee. David Lee. Okay, if no one knows this, you guys need to get a copy of David Lee. I used to read this to guys around a campfire who hated poetry in Western Missouri. They would go and they would have like an annual thing where these guys would get together and go camping out in the woods and cook steak over a fire kind of thing or whatever.
So guy-like.
Yeah, and I would bust this out because this guy, David Lee, he got a PhD in the feminine endings in Milton, which is good and also maybe the most boring PhD you could get of all time. And he was taking himself so seriously, wanted to be the next Milton and was failing miserably. And was just caught up in his academic tenure and just dying from the inside out slowly. And his wife drives a beat up truck home and opens the tailgate and said, "You better come out and help me with this." This is like one of the last poems. And he comes out and there's a burlap sack that's writhing. He says, "Jan, what is this?" And she says, "Help me with it." And he says, "Jan, what is this?" And he opens it up and it's a sack full of piglets.
Okay.
And David Lee used to be a pig farmer prior to becoming a PhD in Milton. And so he started pig farming with his buddy John next door. And then he started writing poems about that.
Taking him back to his roots. What's the title again?
It's called The Porcine Canticles. And it's all about pigs.
I love it.
You got time for a longer one here?
It's your time, honey. This is your show.
I want to read this
told
to you
you.
now. I want to read
Go.
this to you now. And I'm gonna try to read it the best. I think he's from Utah. I'm gonna read it in the best brogue that I can. It's a little crass, but it'll give you an idea of like.
I love crass. I was born crass, babe. I tried to pretend I'm not, but you spend enough time around me.
This is called The Muffler and the Law. Part 1. You got a sound heat? John says this morning when he says, John, I got 4 right now. John says, it wouldn't be that big black one, would it? I say, yeah, she's in. I'm going to turn her in with the board this afternoon. John says, I'll be right down to get her. I want to borrow that sow. He hung up. John brought his beat up truck to my spotted house with his big spotted boar loaded in the back and a partition. So another hog could be put in, but the boar couldn't get to it. And he drove right out to my load and shoot. By the time I got there, John was trying to load up my big black sow. And I said, John, what are you doing? And John looked at me like I was crazy. He says, you going to help me or stand there? Well, I didn't see anything else, so I helped John load up my big black sow. And John drove off with her in his truck and never did say where. Part 2. Late afternoon, John drove up to my house. He honks. He yells, Dave, come help me unload this big black sow of yours. She darn bred. I don't need her no more. He drives out back to the load and shoot and unloads the sow for I can get there. Part 3. John, I said, what the hell's going on? I mean, you come get my big black sow, drive off without telling me anything. You bring her back bred to your spotted boar. What if I didn't want her bred to him? John says, no charge. So it was all right then. I was going to tell him he could take the other 3 sows that were in for a ride all day tomorrow if he wanted. But John shut the gate on his stock racks and sat down on the tailgate. It was this deputy sheriff, John says. So I say, which? And John says, that one in Richfield last week going to the auction at Salina. I run over this rock slide on the cutoff by Cove Fort. I busted my muffler piped loose, and all the brackets I had to stop on the summit and fix it all up with baling wire took almost an hour. I was late for the auction, so I had to go. The muffler was loosed, and it may have no more time. I had to hurry. I got to Richfield. Here comes this law. His red lights on, his sirens honking. Right in the middle of town, I get out and says, I'm late to the auction. He slams his car door, puts his hand on it. He puts his other hand right down on his gun and says, I don't know where you from, mister, but in my town we got a law here. I'm standing there with a truckload of hogs, people driving by slow, looking at me right in the middle of Richfield. I says, I'm late to the auction again. What I done wrong this time? He says, in my town, we got a law against loud mufflers, so you gonna have to pay you a fine for it, mister. I says, look, I done hit this rock slide coming and busted. I tried to wire it up, but couldn't. You look under here, you can see I'm late to the auction. His red lights was still going. I bent down to show him the wire underneath. He jumped in his car, taking out his microphone. He called this other law. So I stood and says, you stand right there. I says, where? He says, right there. He jumps out of his car, puts his hand on his gun, says, you trying to resist arrest on me? I says, no, I'm trying to show you the baling wire under here, holding up the pipes and the muffler where I hit the rock on the mounted, but I can't hold the muffler on right. And the auction starts in 5 minutes. He says, you just stand right there. I got a reinforcement coming. We gonna arrest you. Part 4. I said, what happened, John? John says, the other law, he come and they both wrote me out a ticket for loud mufflers and resisting arrest. And the other one that comes says he believes, but they never wrote a ticket for it. And that's too bad because I was late for the auction. I says, can I go now? But the law, he says, you got to pay your fine. I says, the auction started 5 minutes ago, and I got to get there. The other law says, why you going to the auction selling hogs? I never said a word to that dumb son of a bitch. He gonna stand right there by my truck. I loaded up with 12 hogs, wallowing each other in the middle of town, and all the cars driving by watching. For the first law says, you got to follow us to the JP. I says, isn't it no other way? He says, you trying to bribe an officer of the law? I says, hell no, I trying to get to the auction. The other law says, where? And the first one says, Salina, they sell hogs at that one. I says, that was 10 minutes ago. The other law says, you selling these hogs? But I wasn't talking to him. The law says, you want a regular judge, you can come back next Friday, but the fine goes up for that. I says, can I go now? And the law says, yes. But the other one says, not till you get that muffler fixed. I had to get my truck towed to a filling station 4 blocks away. The muffler pipe welted. He charged me $47.65 to do it. I could have done it for $1 at home if I had my tools, but then the auction was over. I had to drive all them pigs home after I loaded them up that morning to take them to the auction at Salina. 5. I said, that's too bad, John. John says, couldn't sleep about it. For a man to talk to me that way, all he had to done was look under the truck so he could see it wasn't my fault. I tried to fix it best I could. He says the fine would go up. So I said to myself, John, it done cost you $50. That's awesome. And it done cost you $50. So you might as well get your say out of it. But I didn't have no sow and heat. So that's how come I called you. I said, John, I don't understand. John says, I drove to Richfield with that panel between the hogs. My spotted boar, he about chewed it in two trying to get to your big black sow, but he couldn't. So I went right to the spot where the law pulled me over in the middle of town. I stopped my truck and got out, climbed up the stock racks. I took out the panel and I let the boar go to her. I said, you did what? John says, by God, she wasn't quite ready yet. She's squelting. Here come the cars to see. I bet they could hear half a mile. Then here come the law with his red light on. He says, what in the hell is you doing? I says, here I am to pay my fine. He says, you get out of that truck out of here with them pigs. People's watching. I said, where? He waved his arms. He says, everywhere. See them? They're all coming. I says, I got to pay my fine. I come to the court. He says, where? I says, right here. Lord, it was horrible. My spotted boar, he slobbered all over your big black sow. It was hog slobber in both ears. That law's as red in the face as a fox's ass. He couldn't do nothing. He finally says, you get your truck, you follow me. I said, that's fine, but go slow. I got a load of hogs in mine. I can't be jostling them any. We drove to the courthouse. Part 6. Judge says, what's going on? Law says, Your Honor, he's disturbing peace. Judge says, how? Law, he says, he got these pigs in the truck and they're copper-lating in the middle of town. Judge, he says, where? And the law, he says, right out there. And the judge, he gets up and looks out his window. There's my truck. But by now, my spotted boar, he's done. He laid down. He wasn't getting up. Pooped. Judge said, all I see is a hog. Law says, but they were scrutin'. Judge, he says, don't you talk that way in a court of law, you hear me? I see it is a hog, and it ain't no law that says this man can't haul no hog through town in his truck yet. So I says, Your Honor, I want you to listen to my side of this. So I told him the whole story about how I missed the auction and the muffler, and he looked at the law, and he says, is that the way it happened like he says? Law, he commenced to squirming. But he had to say, yes, sir, Your Honor, finally. I told him how it cost me $50 almost to get it fixed, and I had to be towed 4 blocks with 12 top hogs in the truck. And Judge, he says, case dismissed, and said he's sorry about it all, especially the $50. I says, that's the way it is. Can't be nothing done now. I didn't have no more hard feelings, so we're shaking hands, and I left. Law, he's mad as hell outside waiting. He says, mister, you ever come to my town again, I'll make you sweat. I'll arrest your ass and throw you in jail. I says, Mr. Deputy Sheriff Law, you listen here and you listen good. You ever bother me again for anything, next time I'll pull a trailer and I'll bring 8 sows and 3 boars and all together I'll park in front of the schoolhouse and I'll take out the panel and I'll go in and you says for me to meet you there. And where are you? You supposed to have the money for them hogs. And if you don't believe it, you just try. And I says, then so you just get out of my way. I walked on past him, went and left. He never says no more word to me. Part 7. So here's your big black sow. John said, and he stood up. She done bred to my spotted boar, but you don't owe me nothing. I ain't never won one with the law before, so I reckon this one's on me. John closed his tailgate, leaned in, and patted his spotted boar on the head. And then John got in his beat-up truck and drove home for supper.
Oh, my God. That was a movie. That was like a Joe Lansdale movie.
Sorry it was so long.
Joe. No, that was
everyone needs to hear that one, I think.
That's a ride. Like, if you think that's not poetry, you just learned something. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's and they're all, I mean, some of them are a little worse, a little better, but they're all like just this rich, like him and his neighbor getting into hijinks. And it's, if I showed you the text, it's, you know, they're phonetically spelled. So
oh, nice. So you know how to say it.
Yeah. So
That's what
you should,
reminds me of. That's why it reminded me of Joe Lance. No, I wrote it down. I'm on this. I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
sure what, but I am like on it.
But I think you owe me like
Nice.
now you can read like 7 or so. I took enough time.
I don't even know where to begin. Oh my God, there's so many. Okay, I'm going to probably skip and skip because I tried to look and find things that were short because I didn't want to read anything long. I didn't know that was an option.
Sorry. Yeah, you can.
That's okay. That's okay. Anyway, so this is from Ashes and Empty Heart by Hanson Wang. I just got this, and I'm going to murderize some of these words. I'm so sorry, Hanson, forgive me. I've known him since 1990, and this is his first novel that came out. He's in the writers group, Sith, C-I-T-H, not Sith, S-I-T-H, not that kind of darkness, okay? Just so you know. But anyway, it's a novel, but he's got poetry in here. So I just flipped through and I found this. That's why I got tagged. I didn't read it. I didn't practice. You'll see that I didn't practice. and you'll see it's like very short lines. Short lines. Okay, it's just like lines, like sentences, but not. Okay. Fir tree, rooted in How Toll, accept the sacrifice. Sacrifice of man, sacrifice of woman. Man, woman meld into bear spirit. Bear spirit, take root in this fir tree. Bear, man, woman, tree, guardian deity. So I tried to read it the way he has it written. It's like a morphing of humans and spirit and to a tree that becomes I just love that. I don't even know what to say. I just love it so much.
It's kind of like metamorphosis in that way. Some of the
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And I loved it. And again, there's more of it in here, but I just flipped to that one. It's a novel and it takes place in I want to say China, but I'm probably being wrong. But anyway, he's an incredible writer. Can I read a 3-minute poem of mine?
You should read as many as you want. I took so much time with that. Really.
No, I didn't even notice the time. It was such a journey.
Well,
I was seeing it.
Yeah.
I was seeing it, like I said, like a movie. I was like, oh my God, I was in it. And how he just played, in a way, it's like he played dumb, but he was so smart.
Oh,
He played that kind of like, what he was doing. I like that a lot. Anyway.
Read several. Seriously. Yeah, read several.
Well, I'm going to read this one because I love reading this one for some reason. So anybody out there, you heard it already, don't even mention it. Nobody asked you. Anyway, and it's from The Place of Broken Things. Ooh, written with Alessandro Manzetti. This one is Stoker, the book did. And the poem we wrote together, and I swear, as much as I love reading it, I have no real idea which parts is his and mine anymore. I just don't know. I have to go back to the first versions.
Good.
Yeah,
That's a good
and
thing.
it's about something that's very artist that's very close to me. And like I said, I'm sure he started it because he knew I love this artist. The Yellow House. The Dutchman is painting his house in chrome yellow, like the sun, like the golden teeth of an archangel. A bell rings in the distance. The holy scent of candied fruit is floating all around. No, she can't find me here, thinks the man. So far from Paris and its demons. The Dutchman is painting himself on the walls of the yellow house. Sunflower petals bloom from his head. The light of Provence, in a moment, walks in the window. A glimpse on the canvas. Then through an empty glass becomes a memory of the transparent red of wine. Not a place of broken things, thinks the man. So far from Paris and its screams. Evening stars and revelations. What is the Dutchman afraid of? Eternity. He can feel it on his skin, sucking days like a cold leech. That limitless space, he can't paint it all. Too much shadow, too much to take. Someone knocks on the door, repeating the same words. Vincent. You again, thinks the man crawling under the table. She's waiting outside, pregnant. The Dutchman found a path to the next world in the walls of the yellow house, like the first memory of a dream. Bright, still life captured by imperfect human hands. Fighting isolation weeks ago, he found her in the field. And now, Vincent, not you again, whispers the man, squeezing his eyes closed, hands over ears. Still, she waits, refusing to leave. The Dutchman found a road away from the roaring city, from the broken. Why are they afraid of him? Alchemy. He can feel it under his skin, humming in each breath like a newborn, suckling ideas from his noisy brain. She knocks again. Please, he prays, pressing his forehead against the rough wood floor. In his memory, her face is bright yellow. Daffodils cover every inch of her skin, obscuring the details of her face. Blue irises seep from her fingertips. The knocking stops. An echo of pleading rings in his ears. Was this a dream? Left by the moans of crowded buildings, of their need to change him? In his memory, their faces are blurred gray. They, faceless would-be teachers, with hands frozen in muted palettes. He crawls from under the table. She was never there. His ears deceived him. The cracks in the walls begin to weep. I will give you color. I will give you stars and revelations. The Yellow House. I just love that poem.
Yeah, I get so many Poe vibes from that. Follow the House of Usher, and then also kind of like the Monkey's Paw in some ways. I don't know. It reminded me of a lot of different things.
It was like a fever dream. Like I said, I would now because I love it so much. I'm curious to go back and see what he and I did, because it's like a fever dream that we wrote together. So anyway,
yeah, I feel like everyone. What's that?
No, you were saying. I just said it's my fave.
Oh, your fave. Yeah, I said everyone needs like a Christopher Tolkien to go through and make your history of Middle Earth. Like, this is how the history of the document, like someone that actually.
Well, I mean, apparently when I was talking to Ben Rubin, who is the architect, or this is probably a better name for it, of the collecting of horror writing at the University of Pittsburgh Horror Studies. When I was like, well, what are you gonna do with this stuff I'm sending you? And he says that the professors come in with their class, or they come in with students studying, and they look at and break down the development from first version to last version, which that sounds interesting, since I'm writing so unconsciously. Well, okay, when you figure that out, you let me know.
Yeah, tell me what you find.
Yeah,
I would like to know my process.
Because I really can't explain it very much. So anyway, that's it's pretty fascinating to me to think, in any case.
What else you got?
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I got a bouquet. I can't even tell you everything else I got, but I'm gonna go with this one now. Maya Angelou,
Yeah.
who is another of my, like Nikki Giovanni, like my poetry aunts that didn't even know me. My poetry aunties growing up. She oh, okay. I just turned to this one. I'm gonna go with this then. Because she wrote The Caged Bird, that
Yeah.
poem that everyone knows. And then I wrote a poem inspired by that, or juxtaposing that, or whatever, and that's not what I'm going to read, but that poem is so special to me. That poem's been published somewhere, the one I wrote, but I'm going to read this one called The Lesson, and it's just straight lines, short one over here. I'm pointing it out because form sometimes is very important to me, and it's called The Lesson. I keep on dying again. Veins collapse, opening like the small fist of sleeping children. Memory of old tombs, rotting flesh and worms do not convince me against the challenge. The years and cold defeat live deep in lines along my face. They dull my eyes, yet I keep on dying because I love to live. The Lesson. And I'm a sucker for a poem that has an opening line and an end line that comes together. Jamal does that really well. So many people I know that write that way, that excite me. And I love that the first line, I keep on dying again, the journey of the poem, the last line, because I love to live. Maya.
Yeah.
Maya.
Like re-envisioning it. I mean, even Milton's Paradise Lost isn't doing that with his own line, but it's leading up to one of the biggest first lines, maybe the biggest first line of all, right? But he says that of man's first disobedience and the fruit of that disobedience, and it's kind of creating this retroactive anticipation for in the beginning God. It's what a wild way to reimagine that.
Yeah, I love it. Love, all the love. Okay. I'm not sure if I've come up on your 7-part poem yet, but I'm going with another one here.
No, go crazy.
Oh yeah. Still, this is from Jewel Gomez, her collection called Still Water. And I believe one of these is her. I'm going to guess it's the baby, but I'm not sure. I'd have to read the whole thing, but I want to read the poem. There she is. She was a guest of honor at StokerCon a couple years ago. Love, love, love. Anyway, this is called Sediments, like things that settle, because I don't know if I'm saying it right. Sometimes I say things with a Philly Southern accent. People are like, what'd you say? Sediments. It's essential we revere that moment when the black, red, and brown come together, soils dusting against each other as they sift down a mountain. Wherever it begins, the upheaval reveals each stratum below, richer for the revelation. And as the colors tumble downward, blending, they gain strength. Sediments. And I don't know why, but it hits me like just reading it for the first time, like, how we break down people and their colors, the color of their skins and all that kind of crap.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I'm really struck by, as the colors tumble downward, blending, they gain strength. Lord knows I'm a member of that situation. I mean, look at me. I got everything in me. This is like genetic salad going on over here. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't read that before.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Mm.
Yeah, it was kind of like that poem I read at Baltimore, the Mother of Exiles, and it's got that line in it, mixed race babies and the peace they imply.
Love that. Love. Mm.
It's like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. 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 Yep.
I mean, even the Iliad is that. Even the Iliad
I
is that.
mean, I
Every
think that I
single,
have that here.
every single like small town village gets their own hero. If we're talking Salem, it's William Jennings Bryan,
Mm-hmm.
who was like America's greatest failure. Like
Yeah.
got a statue of a guy to like 2 failed presidential campaigns, and it like every town gets their hero, every people group, and they all die these glorious brutal deaths, most of the time being pierced through the bladder with a spear, because they're all of equal importance to this vision of what Greece would be. Now there's a danger in that with like jingoism and that kind of stuff, but I don't think that's what they're after. I think they're after a cohesive identity of joining. Seems to
Yeah,
me.
it makes me think, what you just said makes me think of like these old statues that are sprinkled around of, um, from the Civil War, of, these generals. And it's like what these things represent, and not even old, some of them are still breathing, but they're
Yeah.
statues in white marble. And just like, what is the concept of like that and the reality of
Yeah.
America?
Yeah. 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 For sure.
The reality of America is not those statues, and not the people they represent, and not the things that they did. But that's because, it's like, it means something to you depending on how you're looking at it. Is that your hero? Is that you know, your anti-hero? Is that just a representation of a sadness from the past? It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot like that. Mm-hmm.
Well, and especially because a lot of those were, they were made in the mid-century. I mean, a lot of those weren't even made during, the Civil War. So it's not even like an
Mm-hmm.
antiquity. It's a reaction to civil rights in a lot of ways, and so it's
Or
like,
an anti-reaction, It's either
well,
for
yeah,
or
yeah, 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 yeah. We're saying the same thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
it's like this visceral, as opposed to empathetic, snapback thing, rather
Yeah.
than actually, like you said, who are the actual people who are here, and who are their heroes, and who are their, um, what is their representation? How do we mesh
Mm-hmm.
together as a people to? Yeah, I like that
Mm-hmm.
colors falling down. I don't remember how she said that, but I really like that.
Yeah, I know, right? It was so beautiful. And I, again, I would really love to have, I mean, actually, I could talk to her about what was the seed that started that poem. Yeah, the colors rolling something down the mountain, sifting down the mountain. I can't find it now. But yeah, like, because, and that's the thing about poetry that I do love. And I just wanted to say this, like, when I work with or look at my early poetry, or when I work with new poets also, there's, when you first start, you're writing about personal things. Your cat died, you didn't get this, something happened, good, bad, or indifferent in your life. Where it expands is when you start talking about an apple and you're talking about racism,
Yeah.
or when you're talking about dropping your favorite cup and shattering it, and you're really talking about your mother dying.
Mm-hmm.
That's the expansion, you know. That's the thing into like metaphor, blah 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 blah. But that's where you really, when you start to think that way. And one of the things I teach in a workshop is I tell people what I do when I write my first draft is probably like using all the same words I've always used. It's when I go back and write it, and sometimes I use opposite images in words to make the person reading it stop and think. But I always thought love was smooth and sweet. And you start describing love like a sword going through, something. it changes it because it's not what you expect, but it also opens up the reader because each of us read a poem differently, right? You and I are going to read things, we're going to see it, but you're relating to it by all the things in your life up until this moment, all the emotions, all the disappointments, all the pain, all the laughter. I'm doing the same thing. There's no way we're necessarily going to feel and see the same.
Yeah.
So that's why I love when poetry uses, and your work does this too very beautifully, uses images and words that you don't expect,
Mhm.
because it makes that part of your brain that goes down the road always ridden and have to go off to something else. And it brings some other emotion in it, brings something else in. And I love it when that, and to me, I think that Jules' poem does that because you're like, what? But those words tagged images like we were talking about. We ended up talking about statues. Really? Lancelot.
Uh, I
So
got,
I love
I got what I got,
that.
I guess. But yeah, it. Oh man, there's a line in that Cooling Time CD writes, but
Mm.
in fact, it might be like a one-line poem. I'm not certain, but it's imagine flying in concrete.
That's what I'm talking about. That's
And
what I'm talking about.
actually wrote a whole poem about that. I just sold to Forgotten
Mm.
Realms. That's
Sweet.
just
Sweet.
a it's just about like what does that mean for New Yorkers, you know? How do you fly in concrete? But that's exactly what you're talking about. It's just like that is an impossibility, and yet something like tickles at the back of the brainstem the moment you hear that. You know,
Absolutely.
like oh,
Absolutely.
maybe that is a possibility. Um,
And that's what I like to challenge myself when I'm writing, and that's what I do when I challenge people when I'm either teaching a class or mentoring. I challenge them like, okay, but what is the opposite of love is so sweet like smooth chocolate? You know,
yeah,
what is it that you can do with that line that's opposite? And then how does that make you feel? Let me tell you how it makes me feel. If it's a room full of people, how does that make other people feel? You know, to come in and access something different
mm,
to me is very exciting.
yeah, yeah. I think
That's
you're
just
very right.
me.
I think you're very right on that.
I love that. Anyway, okay, let me try to shovel one more thing on you. I'm
Yeah,
just like
do it.
kind of like, ah, okay.
Give it to me.
Maxwell I Gold, him and Jamal, they my salt and pepper. I love them. Anyway, if Jamal's on, he probably laughing in person, me out somewhere trying to be funny. But Max has written many books, but this is his latest one, Tiny Oblivions and Mutual Self-Destructions. Like literally, I would write a poem to that. What about you, Lancelot?
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, serious, serious. So, gosh, I didn't go through. I tried to find some. Okay, wow. I don't. He uses a lot of words. Sometimes I stumble over, but I'm going to do. This one looks relatively short. Because
don't
I
worry
don't
about
want to get.
whatever you want.
Okay, so well, this one's called Climate Vomit. And what he does is he writes in prose. When I first started working with him, I did it for my own personal thing because I don't do a lot of prose poetry. And
Yeah,
he does prose poetry. And he was like, yeah, you know, you mentioned me. I was like, yeah, we're going to call it that. So, and he's like, now he's like the king of he is the master in so many ways of prose poetry, and just for people to know, in general, it looks like paragraphs, but it's not. It's not the same as paragraphs, guys. Just saying. That's why it's a journey to learn. Anyway, this one's called Climate Vomit. Dried up, sandy promises, irradiated nightmares blown through valley pipes and thrown up into the high clouds were suddenly expelled onto the sullen earth. These crippled words, someday, spoken through old lips and whispered as if a lullaby into the ears of children's future who'd never sing again. Watch the toxic rains, derailed coastlines pushed higher, unrelenting, until breathing seemed almost impossible. Asphyxiated to the point where the song was only a dream, a faint echo displaced and blasted by the nuclear dreams of a plastic society. The people were stuffed under the bed sheets of the bemused, the naive, and the blissful blocked by walls of carbon-soaked corpse, sick and dried up, were the last words like precious water, splashed over the cracked earth as they cried, someday. So one of the things I love about the way Max does his writing is that he, again, I am very, very drawn to words that just like come together and you don't expect them to, you know. And in this one, again, I haven't read this out loud, but the way he describes this thing, you know, the word, if you read it on the paper, you see the someday is italicized in the first and second stanza, but in they're bringing in a different kind of cry almost. Oh, my computer's like, please plug me in. Okay, sorry. Hold on. Don't go away. Here's some juice. You know, a faint echo displaced and blasted by the nuclear dreams of a plastic society, you know.
Yeah.
Love. The blissful blocked by walls of carbon-soaked corpse. It's almost like you're like trying to make that image. And I like the fact that when I read his stuff, it's like the image is almost there, but it's almost not. It's almost like you're on LSD or something with the images that he creates. So
yeah, because like I mean, like walls of carbon-soaked corpses is like on the one hand you get the image of like a massive body soaked in oil,
right.
but also carbon is such a general like chemical word that like it kind of pings you to like other almost more abstract places as well.
Yes.
It does
Yes.
both. Yeah, I like that. There was a
Maybe
guy.
that's what I'm trying to think of. The word you use, abstract. That's what I like when a poem makes you that way. Because he could have said oil-based,
Yeah.
but you know,
Yeah, it's really hard to do both. Really
yeah.
hard to do both. But there was a mathematician who did one, or a physicist that did one, like 10 years ago, or maybe 15 years ago. I heard him on the
Mm.
podcast On Being. That was back when I was listening on an actual iPod, you know, like.
Oh boy.
But he would do that. They were all like based in chemical compounds and formulas, but
Mm-hmm.
also very
Mm-hmm.
concrete. I cannot for the life of me remember who that was. But yeah, it's got some of those vibes to it. But
I
that's
get
cool.
that. I get that. Okay, one more.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so many, so many. And then I'm also like pushing books. And I'm like, I love this. Go get it. Like you, I was writing down titles that you were giving me.
Yeah.
Bestiary of Blood. Oh God, I'm doing so bad with this. This is a new anthology, came out this year. It's Fables for Grown-ups, edited by my Jamal. And it's got everybody. I mean, not everybody, but it's got a lot of people. I don't know. He's got a lot of people in here. But anyway, along the lines of looking at something different, because he has poetry and he has stories in here. I have a story and a poem in here. And each person picked an animal. Fables, right? You know, so you're writing a fable and it has a thing at the end, how fables do. What's that called?
Moral, yeah, like Aesop.
Thank you. Yes, like
Yeah.
Aesop. Right. But like some weird stuff. I picked dolphins. and it's dark and horror. And some of it's funny, actually. And I told my son I was writing for this and I picked dolphins. He was like, Mom, that's a great idea because they're the worst. I was like, yeah, right?
Yeah, dolphins can be mean, like real mean.
People think, somebody I was talking to, and I've mentioned this story in here using dolphins and also stars and constellations because that's just how my crazy brain works. And I was saying, dolphins are da-da-da-da, and they were like horrified because they have children and they have dolphins all over their house. And I was like, yeah, don't put your child in some water with dolphins. No, you don't want to do that. Don't swim with the dolphins.
Yeah, it's like kids that like moose. It's like I would rather face a brown bear.
I'm saying, you got to know these animals. Anyway, it's great because these tales all pick different animals. Some I've heard of, some I haven't. So I wanted to read 2 3-line pieces that's in a story by Michael Bailey. Why can't I get correct with this? Oh no, what's happening with no? Okay, never mind. Anyway, his story is called The Speed of Healing by Michael Bailey. What I love about him in particular is he is like has no problem mixing stuff. He's not like, oh, it's a story, it's got to be sentences and paragraphs, which is nothing wrong with it. My story, I think, for the most part, does that. But anyway, and his story, the animal he picked is sloth. Okay, and then he has the story goes through different parts of how it's happening. So it has all this. I love stuff like this because it's like a play, like it's a movie, like you're going through it. Anyway, so at one point, here's the 2 3-liners, and I stopped myself from counting because I was like, they sure sound like they might be haiku, but I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to force nobody's form on what my brain thinks. So the first 3 lines, and then I'll read the second 3 lines. Sloth. He crawls slowly, branch to branch, hand over hand, reaching out to them. When one disappears in the void, then the other, the black turns placid. So the second one is very much related to the story and the characters, but the first one, what I love about it is that 3rd line, because we all think of the sloth going hand over hand, but the idea of reaching out to them, like, I love that.
Yeah, almost like a partner in the tree.
Mm-hmm. And that's a lot about what this story incorporates, his character and other characters. He does it beautifully, but I was really struck in particular. And it's a simple thing, okay? I mean, he's not changing words to mean anything, except for the fact that when we think of a sloth, we think of them reaching one over the other, one hand over the other, but I've never said, oh, it's reaching out to me or anybody. So I loved it, sometimes just like 3 lines, 1 line can just like leave you with something you can't forget. And that's how I felt when I saw that. I was like, oh wow, okay. Oh my star. Oh,
like
one little.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I just don't like it. Go. Yeah. I just don't like it. Yeah.
So, one other thing, real quick. This was edited by Jonathan Mayberry. It came out this year, the end of this year. It's called Shadows in Verse. And what it is classic dark poems with celebrity commentary. I did a commentary. I've never been called a celebrity before, but I'm going to take that. And all the sales goes to writing programs to support writers. So I want to read it because even though this is not my poem, the idea is not, there's 2 of them I wanted to read. Holy mackerel. Okay, but I'm going to read the short one first. I wanted to read one by Weston Oakes, who is no longer with us, because I freaking love that. And it's really his words. But this is the poem I picked is called Sick Room by Langston Hughes. Because I didn't even know he wrote these little things so short. So
he was a Joplin guy. He grew up in Joplin, where I spent about 10 years. Well, not very long. He and his mom moved from there, but
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Okay. That's
like
cool.
Langston's kind of deep in there for me.
Oh
But
my God, he's so deep in for me. So, whew, what he did with poetry through the Harlem Renaissance, it's the same as what jazz did for Black society. You know, just like we're not writing for nobody else, we're writing for us. Jazz, we're not making music for nobody else, we're making it for us. I mean, he's a, ooh, I get chills. I used to read him out loud too, and be just like love the music of his words. But anyway, this one is just one line after the other. It's called Sick Room. How quiet it is in this sick room, where on the bed a silent woman lies between two lovers, life and death, and all three covered with a sheet of pain. And my commentary isn't that big, but you can imagine what I said. His use of metaphor, his use of turning something like life and death into lovers, and them being on a bed with this woman under a sheet of pain. Powerful last line.
man, it reminded me of I just saw a short film screening yesterday. I was in. There was a bunch of filmmakers getting together for like short film screenings and
Mm.
talk about industry stuff and et cetera, et cetera. I had some fun people there. As a guy that produced Elf and wrote Sully was there talking about stuff, and he was just so humanizing. I mean, he just spoke from
Mm.
conviction about so many issues, from AI to justice to. I mean, it was just awesome.
Mm.
But the last film, it's sweeping awards right now. It's based on the writer's dad. I'm going to spoil it for people that see it. If you don't want spoilers, skip ahead and just go watch the short film Hold if you can get a hold of it, 2024. But
HOLD, like
yeah,
hold.
yeah, and it's this mom and this daughter. Like act one of them arguing. Well, not really arguing. The daughter's just quiet the whole first act and just like kind of sullen, and the mom is just like frantically getting everything together. And then they just argue through this rainstorm, this car ride all the way there, and the daughter hits a bunny, and they get to the hospital, and her dad's dying of cancer. He can't say anything. He's on a respirator, which I felt I have all the feels immediately because my dad died at 65 of like COVID and cancer in 2021, and
Oh
so like I was
Lord.
already kind of in that space,
Oh, I'm sorry,
and
honey.
no, I appreciate that, and they get to the bed, and then like his heart stops, like this typical monitor. I'm like, I kind of know where this story's going, and the heart monitor stops, and so that, and it starts beating again, and they're like, what's happening? And the nurse comes back in, and mom is just like clinging to the dad, and she says, it's you. And it's her. This actually happened to the writer's parents, but it was her pulse being read through the meters as she was clinging on. It was all prior to that about her codependency with her relationship and her daughter's inability to have a relationship. And so here,
Holy mackerel.
and it's what's her name?
Damn.
Oh,
Oh, I
I just
love that. It's
uh,
you.
can't remember her
Holy
name,
crap.
but yeah,
I can find it, I'm sure.
but she was in like Gilded Age and other stuff, and she was talking about it, about like they had that shot on her for like 97 seconds, just her clinging to her husband, and just like that moment where she finally like lets go. um it's
Wow.
it's like that life and death, you know making love underneath the sheets with this man, and how
Mm.
there's like this, he's not there anymore, and yet he is there, and just all that stuff together. It was a really beautiful piece, super super short. I mean, it packed heavier punch than most short films I've seen. It's just called Hold. It's 2024.
Wow. I mean, just
um,
the image of that and them saying it's you.
yeah,
And before that, the hope of it being him.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. You know, Jamal does films too. I hate to be talking so much about him, but I am on his
No,
I
go
am
for
on
it.
his fan club. He does films too. I mean, actually, he's done, award-winning stuff with films. And
Awesome.
he did a film called Morning Meal, like Morning Loss, inspired by my poem called Morning Meal.
Oh, really? That's cool.
And it's like 22 minutes long. It's won a lot of awards, and the script won a lot of awards. Anyway, I was at TusCon, which is a sci-fi convention here in Tucson, and they knew about it. They wanted to play it, and it's so I worked it out with Jamal to get a copy of it so I could screen it for people. It's a really tough one, and it's the poem, which I could always read, but I think so many people have heard me read this over the years, and it's just a mother's reaction to the loss.
Mm.
And the poem, when I read it before he made the film, always had an impact on people, and it was inspired by when I lived in the village. If anyone, I mean, people remember when Etan Patz was taken, Patz, the child that was taken from the village. And then that whole trying to find him. My son was not that far from his age, and I was in the neighborhood where he was stolen, and that's what inspired my film. I mean, my poem. And then Jamal did, of course, his own visual version of it. 22 minutes. It's amazing.
Mm.
He's got a lot of stuff out now. You can just go check him out. He's got more films and stuff that he's showing. But yeah.
You mean mourning, like mourning a loss, not
Yes, not like Good Morning America. That's how I always tell people when I used to do the reading. I was
Yeah.
like, this is called Morning Meal, not like Good Morning America, like Morning Loss.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. I'll check it out. Yeah. That sounds great. That's cool. Well, I want to be respectful of your time too. I'm happy to listen more, but I know you
no,
got.
I feel like I've done enough, even though I
Yeah.
haven't, because there's so many other things on my desk.
Yeah,
But
it's super.
I'm gonna do this. I'll do this. I'll try
Yeah,
to.
you should. I would want to for sure. I I loved everything you shared, and I learned a lot from it. So
Vice
you
versa,
you
my
got any?
friend.
Yeah, well, yeah. David Lee's crazy, but um, uh, if there's is there something coming out soon of your own work? I know you're working on a novel thing. You don't want to talk about that yet, because you're in the midst of it, but.
Yeah, well, I mean, the first novel that I finally finished, I have a wonderful agent at Tobias Literary Agency, and Lane Haymon is my agent there, and he's been amazing, just so supportive. So I didn't even know agents could be like this. So anyway, he's shopping that around. It's called, oh God. Oh my God, it doesn't matter what it's called. If you want to publish it, call Lane Haymon.
Yeah.
That's so sad. Because my mind is here now, so I'm trying
No,
to
it's good.
change
It's
tracks.
good.
And so I'm finishing a second novel, in the next month or two. But the one that I was telling you about, the epic one, I have no idea when that's going to be finished. That's just happening. That's still starting to wake up in my brain.
Hey,
But
that's hard. That's hard work. So I respect anyone that even attempts that. Like
well, I
so.
mean, it's taken like 50 years for me to finally approach it. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's not
Well,
that
no,
easy.
I respect it so much, so much. I mean, there's a reason all of them invoke the muse. Even
Yeah.
Milton was like, sing o muse of Sinai that inspired Moses, but it's still it's still okay. So now you're invoking the Holy Spirit, but you're still invoking the muse. So it's a
Yeah.
daunting task to you ask for help in the midst of it. So um,
Yeah.
so man, I applaud you for that. So
Yeah.
and
No, I have a lot of stuff that is out this year, and then what's coming out next year. I would just say, like, you can always check my site, which is lindaaddisonwriter.com, because there is another Linda Addison, and she's won of a lot of awards and stuff too, but she's a lawyer. So she doesn't look like this. But one day we will meet and take a picture together, because she keeps coming up in my feed.
she should be your first guest when you start your channel.
I'm saying, for real, real. But anyway, stuff I'm in this year. I already told you guys that just came out the end, like last quarter this year, is like this. Also, Where the Silent Ones Watch, edited by James Chambers. He always makes me write some weird thing about something I ain't never even heard of before, but he's like, Linda, here. I'm like, ah. And next thing I know, I write something, I'm like, oh, damn, I like this. Anyway, this is based on William Hope Hodgins' work.
Oh, okay.
I'm in here. I read you guys this. Also wrote a story. I don't do a lot of stories because I'm doing novels and it takes so much time for me. But I wrote a story for Enter Boogeyman that just came out, edited by Alessandro Manzetti. This year, I also did a poem for an anthology called Playlist of the Damned, edited by Jess Landry and William Don Becker. And then they did, oh my God, I love when people do weird swag. So anyway, based on some of the people in here, they did this like cool, see, this is 3-dimensional. Look at that. This like collector's card thing, right? Speaking of Joe Lansdale, there's Joe's collector's card, right? And then here's mine, because I sent him a picture of me when I had like dreads. Not dreads, locks. Not locks, but I mean extensions, sorry.
Did they make you Medusa?
Yeah, how about that?
That's awesome.
That. And there's a dragon. They asked me stuff, I like. And there's a dragon in the background. There's wings. See the feathers?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I love it when people go and do that kind of thing. Anyway.
It's a night bird.
You need to get out of my brain. Whatever. Holy crap, dude. Serious. Wow, Lancelot. We have shared a life in the past, babe. Anyway, and I have this really short little story on the back called The Cost of Salvation, which I friggin' love.
Oh, that's cool.
Conversation between an angel and a demon. What else? Oh, one more pretty thing. Oh my God. So I have a poem in this anthology called Folk Horror. And look at this. It's like a cake. It's so pretty.
That's chonky.
Isn't it? Holy crap-a-ronies. Anyway, yeah, I have a poem in here inspired by real things. I always do. A lot of my stuff is inspired by real stuff. I tell people if it sounds real, go look it up because it probably is. I think that's all the stuff I can find on my desk right now that I'm in. But
that's great. Yeah.
I was going to read something from the Riesling anthology that's put out by the Science Fiction and Fantasy Poetry Association. They're the ones that give me that great title, Grandmaster of. I'm like, wow, I did not see that coming at all. That wasn't even on my list. And then they also do a Dwarf Stars anthology, which is all like short poems. I mean, I'm not in this, but there's some wonderful stuff in there. There's just so much stuff.
That's amazing. Well, anyway, yeah.
What about you? What do you have coming up?
Oh, that's super sweet of you. Yeah, well, I did several things last year. I've only got a couple of stories. Let's see, Forgotten Ground Regained just did a couple more alliterative poems. They're the ones trying to start the alliterative revival, which isn't just alliteration. It's what I was talking about earlier with the 18 rule. Carving in granite. There's oh man, I sold a story to Southern Truths called The Sword and the Trowel. It's about gun violence. So all of the possible, if you need trigger warnings, that's probably the one I would give it to. It's a mass shooter situation. So it's just, and it's based on a conversation with a friend of mine who is ex kind of Delta Force, not by enrollment, but by the amount of tours he did in Iraq. He ended up essentially climbing the ladder until he thought it was just 2 deployments. They're like, no, you were on like 8 tours because they never brought him back. And he came back and realized someone asked him what would happen in an active shooter situation in a specific small town in Missouri. And he said, if that happened, because he owned like a shooting range and he was like very pro gun and it was all this training, blah blah blah. And they said, what would you do in an active shooter situation? He said, I would get as many of my friends to the door as possible. And they said, why? He said because the person to firearm ratio in this, it was a mega church he was talking about, in this mega church is so high and the gun safety so low that the reciprocation would kill almost everyone I love. And so it was based on that conversation, is kind of just like a acting out of the consequences of that. And then like, how do you move on towards, as Dr. King would say, you know, to respond to violence and oppression without resorting to violence and oppression itself. So that was that story. It's called The Sword and the Trowel. There was another one I did for Scott's Planet called Real Big Hoggin', which is about it's on a planet that's basically, once I looked through the World Bible, I realized, wait, 70 degrees year round, mud everywhere. The only food source are giant centipedes. I was like, this is perfect catfish weather all year round. And so, yeah, it's about, it's kind of based on a couple of guys I know from Southern Illinois, older guys who go hogging, like, you know, putting your fist into like a catfish biting on, like pulling them out by the gill. A guy takes an Eastern Orthodox, the only Eastern Orthodox priest on the entire planet, to go catfishing, and they get into deeper water than they meant to. So it's that kind of, you know, real big story. So yeah, those are stories coming out, and
they're coming out next year, or are they out this year?
No, they're out. Scott's Plane will be out in the next month or so. But the Southern Truths is out. That's by B Cubed. But my novel Overmorrow, I pulled from the production line because I was having, and if you have any advice on this, for, you know, send me links or whatever. It was struggling with transitions on like a microphone between thoughts. It was almost like a record skipping, and a lot of people liked it, but there were a lot of people that really struggled. So I pulled it to try to get another editing pass on it and see if we can get it in better shape before I release it.
That's it. Now, is there a site that has all this information of your stuff on your site?
Yeah, just my site does, or you can just look me up on, I mean, you can easily look me up on Amazon or Goodreads and find pretty much everything.
I mean, that's the good thing. Your name is unique enough that you have to worry about that too much, right?
Yeah. It's helpful for sure. Well, thank you so much for all of your time. It's always such a just delight and inspiration and encouragement talking to you, and it makes me want to write better and more. And so I hope that's the case for other people too. But yeah.
Well, I'm happy if it does it with you. Then I have paid for my ticket for being here today.
I'm looking forward to seeing you know, what people think when they watch this, or in the stream, once I go back and look at comments, things like that. So yeah. So may everyone you shared do well, sell well. I'm looking forward to more work from you, and hopefully I'll see you at another conference sometime soon.
Oh, yes, indeed. Please. Yes, let's do that. And if I'm doing an open mic and you don't show up to read with your amazing readability, I'm going to take it personal. So you best be hiding from me if you don't come to my open mic, or have a good reason. Like, yeah, I had to go get my kidneys taken out or something. I mean, I'm messing with you.
Well, the funny thing was about Gen Con, you know, I don't know if I told you this, but I was looking all the events they had. I was like, surely there's like a reading or an open mic thing I can do for like some fiction, something or whatever. And then I saw Linda and I was like, all right, I got to do that. I mean, I've definitely got to go there. But the only other one in all of Gen Con was a puppet open mic hosted by the cast of Sesame Street off in the puppetry workshop. And so
Get out of here.
No, I'm telling you the truth. I've actually got a video recording of this. And I called the president of my org. I was like, do we know anyone that's got a puppet in Indianapolis? I know it's a long shot, but like maybe. He said, oh yeah, so-and-so is a professional puppeteer. And this guy owns like one of the only like classic like Night of the Living Dummy puppets that's got like 10,000 keys in it. And he gives me one of his classic puppets. I'm like, I'm gonna break this thing. He's like, no, you'll be fine. And teaches me how to use this. And I read from Bellhammers with that in front of like Pam Arcerio and like all of these folks. And so
oh my gosh, how did I miss that?
It was a wild experience.
And I
think they do it every year. So next time you go to Gen Con, do that. But no fiction. But there was a puppet open mic and a poetry open mic, so I got my piece. So
that's amazing.
So thanks for having me.
if I'm ever a guest at conventions, I always tell them I have to do an open mic. And
Yeah.
I don't care what people read at an open mic. I just want people
No.
to come and read. That's all.
Yeah, it's
You know
a
that.
beautiful, beautiful space. So, well, take care and take heart. And I'm gonna end the stream. Thanks to everyone for joining us and for chiming in there, Jamal. And we will see you soon.